Welcome to the show. Picture a company where the junior analyst no longer builds the first spreadsheet. The entry-level marketer no longer drafts the first campaign copy, and the associate developer no longer writes the first pass of the code. AI does the first draft now. And that means today's episode is really about this: the great AI career shuffle, which jobs evolve and which disappear. Because AI is not just replacing tasks, it's reshaping entire career paths in real time. Before we jump in, if you like conversations that cut through the hype, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm Simon Carver, joined by Lachlan Reed and special guest host CJ Murphy. And Lachlan, the thing that keeps nagging at me is this split screen. Executives hear productivity, workers hear the bottom rung just disappeared.
Yeah, mate, that's the bit that rattles around in your helmet. Up top, someone's saying, "Beauty, we can do more with less." Down on the ground, the coordinator role gets shaved, the operations specialist role gets thinned out, and the junior staffer who used to learn by doing the boring bits is suddenly told, "Nah, the bot's got that." It's like pulling the training wheels off before the kids even found the pedals.
And let's talk about what's actually happening. The promise being sold is limitless productivity. But many organizations are still struggling with governance, hallucinations, validation, and accountability. So we're automating outputs faster than we're understanding consequences. That's the mismatch. The dashboard says faster. The reality says riskier.
The word hallucinations there matters, because if an executive hears first draft in 10 seconds, they may not see the second cost, the human being who has to verify whether that draft is wrong in subtle ways. Wrong research, wrong summary, wrong assumption, wrong code.
Exactly, and those are not cosmetic errors. A hallucinated research citation can contaminate a report. An inaccurate summary can distort a decision. Broken code can move quietly into production. Legal exposure, reputational risk, synthetic misinformation loops. These are forms of operational debt. It looks like acceleration on the surface, but under the surface, you may be financing mistakes you'll pay for later.
Operational debt is a ripper phrase, because debt's sneaky. You don't feel it when you're buying the shiny thing. You feel it later when the bill turns up. That's what some of this AI stuff feels like to me. A cheap shortcut that suddenly needs 3 humans and a panic meeting to untangle it.
3 humans is the image, right? One person prompting it, one person checking it, one person explaining to the client why the polished thing was confidently wrong. So when people say AI will create more jobs, I think the sharper question is, what kind of jobs?
Yeah, turns out the future job wasn't replaced by AI. It became babysitting AI. Which, honestly, sounds less like science fiction and more like a bloke at the shops following a self-checkout machine around with a key.
The self-checkout with a key is going to stick with me. But there's something serious inside that joke. The work architecture changes. The old ladder used to be do the repetitive stuff, build pattern recognition, earn trust, take on complexity. Now, the repetitive stuff gets automated first. So the big question for this episode is simple and uncomfortable. Which jobs evolve? Which jobs vanish? And who gets left without a path upward?
The real question isn't what AI can do. It's what humans must still be accountable for. And increasingly, the durable value is not raw output. It's supervision, validation, judgment, and context. In other words, not just generating an answer, but knowing whether the answer should be trusted, where it fits, and what happens if it's wrong.
So let's make that concrete. When you say supervision and validation, who are these people? What are the roles actually becoming?
We can already see 3 broad categories emerging. First, humans who supervise AI. Oversight reviewers, AI governance officers, workflow architects, what some people lazily call prompt engineers, though the role is becoming far more structural than prompting. Second, humans who repair AI mistakes. Validation specialists, trust and verification analysts, AI compliance investigators, human escalation teams. Third, humans whose work becomes hollowed out because AI absorbs the lower value portions of the role. That third category is the most dangerous, because it can look stable right up until it isn't.
Hollowed out is the one that bites, eh? because it's not always a dramatic layoff. Sometimes the role's still there on paper, but the juicy learning bits are gone. The junior analyst isn't analyzing. The entry-level marketer isn't really learning message craft. The associate developer's not wrestling with the first build. They're just tidying up after the machine. That's a different apprenticeship altogether.
Yes, and we've seen this pattern before with other forms of automation, just not this quickly across knowledge work. Many careers historically began with repetitive, low-risk work. Junior analysts, coordinators, associate developers, entry-level marketers, operations specialists. Those roles were not glamorous, but they were formative. They were where people built judgment through repetition. If AI removes that layer, organizations may unknowingly destroy the very pipeline that creates future senior talent.
The pipeline piece is the part I think a lot of leaders are not fully sitting with. Because they may hear low-risk work and think, perfect, automate it. But low-risk work is also where a person learns what normal looks like, what weird looks like, what dangerous looks like.
Exactly. My analogy for this is aviation. Imagine removing rookie pilots from training because autopilot can handle calm skies. Then 10 years later asking where all the captains went. Captains do not appear by magic. Expertise is accumulated through guided exposure, correction, and consequence. If you erase the apprentice layer, you don't get a more efficient system, you get a brittle one.
Where all the captains went. That's the fact people should hang on to. You can't skip straight to veteran. Even a kangaroo could trip over that one. And companies are weirdly close to doing exactly that, automating the rookie laps, then acting shocked when nobody knows the track.
Let me try to say it back. The valuable worker in the next decade may not be the person who can produce the most AI-generated stuff. It may be the person who knows when not to trust it, how to validate it, how to govern the system around it, and how to connect context across departments before a fast answer becomes a bad decision. Is that close?
That's close. I'd add one more word, accountability. Because judgment without accountability becomes commentary. The new human advantage is critical thinking under uncertainty, with consequences attached. The people who matter most may be the ones who can say, this output looks efficient, but it should not ship, and then explain why in a way the organization respects.
So the hot new skill is not smashing the generate button. It's being the grown-up in the room when the machine says, trust me, bro.
And that's funny until you realize how many systems already depend on somebody being that grown-up. History rarely eliminates humans all at once. It slowly removes the layers people thought mattered, until society realizes too late which layers were holding everything together.
Which is why this moment calls for intention, not panic. If you're a leader, don't just ask where AI can cut labor. Ask where human capability is formed. If you're a worker, don't just learn the tool. Learn validation, governance, escalation, context. Those are not side skills anymore. They're becoming central.
Yeah, learn to spot the dodgy bits, mate. Learn where the machine falls in a hole. That's not old school resistance. That's future-proofing.
And we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening to The Human Workforce. If this gave you something to think about, like, share, and subscribe. And maybe send it to someone quietly wondering what happens when the first rung of the ladder disappears.